Hello, my name's Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for January 18th to January 24th of 2015. And on January 18th, we have the sun. You can see it here denoted by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Capricorn, and it's in the 60th hexagram. And at the outside of the wheel, we can see the chop mark representing the 60th hexagram. Numbered from bottom to top, the 60 goes yang, yang, yin, yin, yang, yin. And then the 60th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here is the 60th gate of acceptance, limitation. The acceptance of limitation is the first step in transcendence, located in the root center, in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel of mutation, that the and design of energy, which initiates and fluctuates pulse, that connects to the third gate of ordering difficulty at the beginning. The fundamental challenge of initiation is to transcend confusion and establish order. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person, so that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on January 18th. We've got the sun in the 60th gate. We've got the earth in the 56th gate. The north node is in the 48. The south node is in the 21. Mercury is slowing down as it turns retrograde on the 21st, and it's in the 13th gate along with Venus. Mars is in the 55th gate. Jupiter is retrograde in the 4th gate. Saturn is in the 34th gate. Uranus is in the 21 with the south node. Neptune is in the 37, and Pluto is in the 38. And obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And you can get your human design chart by going to jovianarchive.com. Click on the button that says get your free rave chart, and then just enter in your birth information. And then neutrino forecast is just a weather report. No matter what the weather, an individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we have no channel definitions due to the transit field. We're going to be looking at the sun's Rave Ching line values daily, because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when talking about these shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Now, if your strategy authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always just notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On January 18th, we start with the sun in the second line of the 60th hexagram. So it's up here in the line of the Hermit of the 60, and the sun in the second line of the 60 is described as decisiveness, exalted, the understanding of the nature of limitation, to accept its restraints when necessary, and thus be able to take advantage of opportunities when they arise. Energy that can adapt to restraint, detriment, and an adaptation to restraint that becomes habitual and maintains the nature of limitation even when it no longer exists. The energy for adaptation that can get stuck without eventual mutation. And second line days, everybody's waiting. They're waiting to be called, typically called because for their natural talents. So it may not be the best day to have a big social occasion, because folks would probably rather stay home under that second line influence. But then later on the 18th, the sun moves out of the Hermit line into the Martyr line, the third line of the 60. And this happens at 11:28 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The times I'm going to give you are Eastern Standard Time, so you want to convert that to your local time zone. And the sun in the third line of the 60 is conservatism, exalted, enlightened self-interest that naturally handles restrictions and limitations in ensuring identity and security, the energy to maintain identity and security despite limitations, detrimented, ego-gratifying self-interest that ignores limitations and suffers predictably, the energy which ignores limitations and pays the price. And third line days, we're talking about the martyr, trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. So it's a day to be, be careful on the roads, be careful of things in your environment, because third line energies, things bump into you. We might have bonds made and broken. It's a good material day. It's a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you have to be careful because things can go wrong, but the things are there to lead us to discovery. Also on the 18th, we have Venus leaving the 13th gate and moving into the 49th gate. Mercury is still in the 13th, so that's why it remains there. And Venus is very powerful and deeply misunderstood, according to Ra. It brings morality, values, natural law in which we deal with the others and the consequences of the world around us, and what disturbs you on a moral level. Your design and personality Venuses tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life. And that if you don't act with moral clarity, Ra talked about Venus being very unkind in this retribution. Well, we have Venus in the 49th gate of principles, ideally the transformation of forms based on the highest principles and not simply for power. And Venus is moving direct. It moves into the first line of the 49, which is the law of necessity. It is the law of necessity. Revolution has no support unless it is perceived as necessary. Exalted, the understanding and application of law to maximize the expansion of support and thereby viability. The awareness that the potential of a principle is based upon being accepted as viable. Detrimented, the misuse of influence to insist that necessity can be created out of actions, the helter-skelter syndrome, to commit acts of disorder as proof that disorder exists, oversensitivity to rejection that can turn a principle into a crusade. On the 19th, the sun moves out of the martyr line into the opportunist line, go up into the fourth line, again, of the 60th hexagram. The shift happening at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the fourth line of the 60 is described as resourcefulness, exalted, the reasoned and intelligent maximization of potential within limits, the maximization of potential within limitation, detriment, a tendency in times of limitation to seek the inner meaning of restriction rather than using its gift to find harmonic application within the limitation. The former leads to withdrawal, the later to transcendence. The energy to know rather than to accept limitations at the expense of possible mutation leading to depression. And so fourth line days, we're changing from the inward perspective of the lower trigram, first, second, third lines, to a more outward perspective of the upper trigram. Lower trigram, personal process, upper trigram, transpersonal. And so we shift to more looking outward with themes of friendship, companionship, networking. It's great for social interaction. People are more open to networking, to being friendly and social. And also on the 19th, Mars moves from the 55th hexagram and joins Neptune in the 37. So Mars is in the gate of friendship, the family, the manifestation macro and microcosmically of the organic nature of communities. Mars in the first line of the 37 is the mother or the father, a position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for the development of guidelines. Exalted harmony is the key to successful maintenance of relationships. It's only through harmony that the beauty and values of the family can endure. Friendship that is rooted in sensitivity and ensures harmony. Detrimented, there's no planet in detriment. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. In mythology, Mars represents the warrior archetype, and Ra talked about that by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And on the 20th, the sun moves into the fifth line. So leaving the opportunist line into the heretical fifth line, again, 60th hexagram. Shift happens at 7:39 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun is just in the fifth line of the 60 is described as leadership, exalted, the awareness that the destruction of old limitations simply creates new ones. The results in behavioral patterns that demonstrate this understanding through action and enhances leadership potential. The energy to handle a lifelong process of dealing with limitations. Detrimented where the natural desire for expansion, when limitations are essential, creates confusion from the top. Expansive energy that cannot handle limitations. Fifth line days, again, we're talking about the heretic. So we've got suspicion, but also universalization, where something spreads like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video or a Facebook post or something like that. Again, great deal of suspicion and paranoia on the fifth line day. As I've said before, it's projection. The projection is they could do it. They'd be great at it. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, doesn't want to do it, for whatever reason, it does not get done, the expectation is not met, then that's when we experience the punishment. So it's really only paranoia if they're not out to get you, and given the projection field, they very well might be. This impacts the nature of our relationships. Seduction is also a theme of Fifth Line Day. On the 21st, the sun moves into the sixth line. So up into the role model line, up on the roof of the hexagram here, again, 60th gate and hexagram, shift at 5:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the sixth line of the 60th hexagram is rigidity, exalted, the intuitive intellect to recognize when absolute rigidity is essential, but with innovative applications to lessen its severity. A fixed energy that is unusual in its capacity for restraint. Detrimented, the dogmatic principle and carefully reasoned understanding that is uncompromising in its severity and often coldly brutal in operation. The uncompromising and severe acceptance of restraint, so uncompromising that the restraint may become unbearable and lead to chronic depression. And sixth line days, again, we're on the roof of the hexagram. If you think about being on the roof of your house, you're not looking at the house so much. You're looking at everything else that's around the house in the neighborhood. So Rod talked about don't get stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your shins or your kneecaps. It's a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like third line days, there's certain dangers of not seeing a bill coming, not seeing a car coming, things of that nature. And then on the 22nd, the sun moves from the 60 hexagram and into the 41st gate and hexagram, which of course is the Rave New Year. And then we have the Earth also moving from the 56 into the 31. And we've got the Earth that's in the 31st hexagram and the gate of leading, influence, the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. And the shift happens at 3:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the sun in the 41st gate of contraction, decrease, the limitation of resources which maximizes the development of potential. The sun in the 41-1 is reasonableness, the appropriate delegation of responsibility, exalted imagination that makes the best out of very little, coolness, where the energy to release feelings is selective, detriment, a tendency in understanding to assume capability leading to strain, a hothead, the urge to release feelings. And again, the sun in first, second, third line days, we're in the lower trigram, more of the personal process, where people are looking more inward, they're absorbed in their own process. And the theme of the first line is a fear or anxiety that needs to be investigated. It's a day to study, not to act, a day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or don't know. And I'm going to be covering the Rave New Year forecast a little later in this report. That brings us to the 23rd, and the sun moves from the investigative line up into the hermit line, the second line again of the 41st hexagram, and this shift is at 1:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 41-2 is described as caution, humanism tempered by pragmatism, exalted, a conservative nature that does not risk its own security in aiding others, energy for one's own feelings, but not for others. Detriment, a desire for recognition that throws caution to the wind, depleting valuable resources for only temporary recognition, the energy for display of feelings for recognition. And again, we've talked about second line days. People are waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly for their natural talents. So again, not a great social day. So also on the 23rd, Venus moves from the 49th gate and into the 30th gate. So let's see. Which is significant here, because it's bringing us the definition of the channel of recognition. With a defined solar plexus and a defined root by the transit. All right. So in human design, Venus is again deeply powerful, deeply misunderstood, according to Ra. It's about morality or values are the themes of Venus. And Venus is in the 30th gate of recognition of feelings, the clinging fire, freedom recognized as an illusion, limitation as fate. Venus is exalted in the first line of the 30 due to the sun being in the 41st hexagram. And this is composure, balance in the face of disorder, exalted, the maximization of limitation in all cases, stability through feelings, no matter what the situation. And with Venus in the 30 connecting with the sun in the 41, we have the channel of recognition. And this is going to be with us until the 27th. It gives us a few days to dream for the sake of the dream, without the expectation of the dream coming true or bringing lasting peace. This is part of the abstract collective circuitry. So sharing experiences about our hopes and dreams with others will have a profound ability to stir their feelings. I'd expect folks to be a little more restless in their experience of a connection between the root and the solar plexus. Also, for those who do not have emotional definition, this channel brings that unfamiliar wave of emotions, a yearning to feel in order to learn. And then on the 24th, we have the sun moving into the third line, so we're now up in the martyr line of the 41. The shift happening at just 5 minutes after midnight. on Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 41.3 is efficiency. In times of decrease, selfishness is justified. Exalted, material ambition and the discipline to go it alone. The energy that fuels the feelings for personal ambition. Detrimented, instinctive assistance. Admirable, but in this position, misguided, where two will use up resources twice as fast as one. The energy that fuels the feelings to share. And again, we talked about third line days, bonds made and broken, trial and error process, system and discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. And sometimes figuring out what does work because you can't figure out how to break it. Then later on the 24th, the sun then moves into the fourth line. So back up to the opportunist line. My channel's just not sticking here. Sorry about that. Hopefully it will last. So the fourth line of the 41 is correction. Successful adaptation to limitation, exalted survival of the fittest and its eventual flourishing, the energy for adaptation and a deep feeling of survival, detrimented the expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than on correction. In times of decrease, weak associations are shunned as costly, no matter how attractive. The energy which fuels holding on to feelings rather than adapt. And again, we've talked about fourth line days, that we're now moving into a more outward perspective under the fourth line influence. Again, so a good day for socialization, networking, being friendly, those type of activities. So the Rave New Year. Geez, I'm going to just have to put everybody back together here. Okay. Let's get this set back up for the Rave New Year, which means we've got to put Venus back in the 49. And define solar plexus. All right. And here's the chart for the Rave New Year, and you can see these are the actual gates and line values that we're going to be talking about. So for the Rave New Year, let's start out by the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching have corresponding codons in DNA, and the 41st is the only initiating codon. There are 3 stop codons, but there's only one that starts. So this begins at every string of genetic information. Every sentence begins with the 41st codon, which is the gate of decrease, which brings the stream of the human experiential wave from the 41st up to the 30, to which is fate, to the 36, which is crisis, and then finally to the 35, which is expectations. And this is the stream of a desire for experience. Entry of the sun into the 41st gate it initiates a new human cycle on this plane. The 41 comes out of the root, which is a pressure sensor, so we have the pressure to start something. And when the sun enters the gate of decrease, in the channel of desire, we have the Rave New Year. This influences all forms of life at the beginning of a new solar cycle. Decrease is like a gardener who cuts the plant back so it can sprout anew. And over the past few weeks, we've looked at the stages leading up to the Rave New Year. During the Gregorian New Year, we had the sun. It was in the 38th gate, with the Earth in the 39th gate. So the sun's in opposition. The Earth was in obstruction, bringing us to question, did we fulfill our purpose? and fulfill our spirit during the past year. This is a beginning of closing down the cycle that leads to the Rave New Year. Was there a purpose? Then the sun was in the 54th gate of ambition, with the earth in the 53rd gate of beginnings, bringing us to look forward. Who are the correct allies to fulfill our ambition for transformation and new beginnings? Who can I work with? Who can I trust and rely on? And then into the 61st gate for the sun, and the 62nd gate for the earth. So into inner truth and the details, brings us to look upon look within ourselves for inspiration based on facts, based on what's possible. And then the beginning of the week, we've already seen we had the sun in the 60th gate of limitation. Just let go closes out the year. Letting go of the seduction of the mind, letting go of insecurities, driving us to believe that we need to make something happen. Closing the book on the past, so that we are ready to step forward into a new cycle, to get clean. This is about transcending limitation through acceptance. So let's look at this Rave New Year chart, which occurs at 3:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 22nd of 2015. And we start with the sun in the first line of the 41. Which brings the imagination to make the very best out of very little. The moon moves into the 30th gate before midnight on the 21st, the day before the Rave New Year. And by the time the sun enters into the 41st hexagram, the moon is in the fourth line of the 30, burnout, which brings us this very strong emotional definition of the channel of recognition in the Rave New Year chart. This is particularly difficult for those who've entered into the not self new beginning cycle with the Gregorian New Year, because the energy did not support getting things going with the right angle cross of tension. So now they feel burnout. Burnout is the theme for the upcoming year, with the sun in the 41st gate of contraction, decrease the limitation of resources, which maximizes the development of potential. And the sun is in the first line of reasonableness, the appropriate delegation of responsibility, exalted imagination to make the best out of very little, coolness, where the energy to release feelings is selective, detrimented, a tendency in understanding to assume capability, leading to strain, the hothead, and the urge to release feelings. And then at the other end, we've got the moon in the 30th gate, in the line of burnout. And burnout is described as an unrealistic pace that begs misfortune. This brings us this definition of, and with the definition, we have a life force, and the life force with burnout. This is very powerful. The channel of recognition is a collective channel, so there is the need for some kind of sharing. It's pressured emotionality. It's also deeply emotional, no truth in the now. And as Ra had said about similar definitions in past Rave New Year forecasts, truth is not something we're going to that's going to be there this year. It's not something that we're going to that's going to be accessible this year. And we have the sun being backed up by Pluto in the 38th gate of opposition. It's detrimented in the fifth line of alienation, a stage in opposition where one is totally isolated, detrimented. Alienation experienced as painful confinement that by its very nature blinds one to the possibility that there are some that there are those at some point who may come to one's aid. The energy for stubbornness so strong that it's difficult to recognize that there are others who can help in times of struggle. So this brings pressure to fight and struggle without allies. But if you're operating correctly as yourself, you can take advantage of the program by using your strategy and authority to find correct allies or not. Also on the 22nd, we've got Venus in this defined solar plexus in the 49th hexagram, fifth line. Again, this is organization, exalted, practical provisions for the needs of others in revolutionary times, which ensures support and continued understanding. Potential sensitivity to the practical needs of others, detrimented a concentration on the organization of power to clearly define authority, often at the expense of higher principles, or rejection of higher principles in seeking to organize others. So we have homogenized people needing in times of needing others in times of revolution, yet they're alienated. The 30, the clinging fire, is is a source of desire. But what lies behind it is the fates in this emotional gate. It's abstract. We've got the 41 saying, I want this fantasy and I want it desperately. And then the 30, the fate says, okay, but you're not going to get it the way you think. It's not going to be easy to get there. And this is burnout again, fourth line of the 30. An unrealistic pace that begs misfortune, compulsive and hyperactive, running around in survival mode. And there's going to be the bursting of bubbles. There's going to be emotional outbursts. And then we've got Mars and Neptune in the 37, again in this defined solar plexus. And Mars is detrimented in the third line of the 37, which is even-handedness. The success of any group is dependent on maintaining order. Detrimented, the ironic tendency to either test incessantly the borders of acceptability, or to respond to the same tendency in others with severity. The possible lack of sensitivity to what behavior is appropriate. And the 37, this continues the stream of revolution, moving from the 19 to the 49 to the 37. The 49 being revolution, and so it moves into the 37. So we have people testing the borders of acceptability, but also challenging others who do the same. So during the upcoming year, we'll see this played out in the not self of individuals and tribes. Although I consider governments to be collective, I feel like politicians seem to have their own tribes within the government and political parties, and it would not surprise me to see them testing see the testing of what is acceptable and appropriate played out in tribal political parties within governments. And then Neptune is in the 37. It's in the first line, and Neptune brings a fail to friendship and family. And in the first line, this is again the mother and father, a position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for the development of guidelines. Harmony is the key to successful maintenance of relationships, and it's only through harmony that beauty and values of the family endures. And like we said, Neptune brings a fail. We don't get to see what things are about. Neptune can trap you if you try to get behind the veil. And without strategy and authority, harmony seems really improbable. And in this time when there's lack, a time when you're on your own, with the bursting of bubbles and outbursts, revolution, inappropriate behavior from tribes over resources, and to support the family in being harmonious or not. And then we've got Saturn exalted in the third line of the 34 in the martyr line. This is machismo, the indiscriminate display of power, exalted, where machismo, unfortunately, is invariably backed up by power. This is the exaltation only in that it's natural and not contrived, to display a power that defines any role. So here we're going to add the display of power to revolution, where allies are scarce and borders and boundaries to what is acceptable are challenged, with the pressure to begin something new that leading to burnout. And Uranus and the South Node are conjunct in the fourth line of the 21. Which is strategy, a careful appraisal of opposing forces to establish a proper response, bringing the instinct to use power effectively in response to conditions, but also the drive, when it's right, to follow one's ego rather than one's instinct. And then the earth is detrimented in the first line of the 31, which is manifestation. Influence cannot exist in a vacuum. Detrimented, the absorption of light, that in darkness can only promise manifestation. Detrimented, the unnatural expression of leadership. So here we got leadership being unnaturally expressed. And then we've got Mercury here. It's also in the heretical fifth line of the 13th hexagram, the savior, the ability to overcome all obstacles for the betterment of humanity. So we may be hearing about people who are gifted in finding roles for others, bringing some light into the year. But these people may also be seen as heretics and find that projection leads to being burned at the stake. But that's the dark side. There's struggle over resource. And we cannot change the ignorance of the not-self world, but we can make a difference in our own lives. There is not so much that you can do about the madness of the world. So, take care of yourself and the ones you love. No matter what's happening in the world, good, bad, or indifferent, take care of yourself and the ones you love. And you can find your way by navigating as yourself. This is about not being homogenized. This weather doesn't have to negatively impact your life. As Ross said, the beauty of understanding how to operate as yourself is that you're out of the program. And of course, as we're moving towards 2027 and the end of the cross of planning, as a background frequency, it is going to insist that we have our own authority to guide us, because we do not have an infrastructure to support us. That's what's going away as we're leaving the cross of planning. And we're all seeing this as basic support structures that have been in place through governments and institutions continue to dwindle. And as Ross said in the past, never mind this year. Isn't going to track any better in the years building up to 2027, and because we have a slow breakdown of the 4037 community infrastructure. And so it's not about waiting for a new year forecast that's going to be full of light and brightness, because it's not what's happening. You have to see that the counterpoint of the dissolving of infrastructure is the empowering of the individual, and its only counterpart with your strategy and authority offers you the empowerment of the individual. So in line with your frequency, with the frequency that is truly you, through using your strategy and authority. Best wishes on this Rave New Year. May you live as yourself. So, no matter what energies are conditioning you during the week, remember this experience is about being a passenger riding in a vehicle driven by the magnetic monopole. Enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. Just take some time to observe the play, observe your movie, as well as acting your part. Remember, you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. As always, I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on January 25th of 2015. Should be available by the 24th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. And you can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube. There's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And I am providing readings. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And again, email me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com. I'll get back to you with instructions how to make a donation if that's what you choose. Although I always think that the best way to make a donation is get a reading. You'll get something that's important to help you in your life and during these times, and you'll be supporting us in keeping these reports freely available. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application in our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. In Lakesh. And as Ra would say, love yourself. And as always, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to connect with this. Look forward to connecting with you in a reading, or perhaps another video, or certainly just through the email. So anyway, all my best to everybody. Peace.